Well, hello there, history nerds. Shannon Butler, the historian for the Poughkeepsie Public Library District here. Here in my backyard. Gardening can be a relaxing and meaningful experience to some, while for others, it's simply a chore. Of course, there also exists the very rare breed of very talented individuals who are so good at gardening that they've made it into a career. These few people have perfected the art of planting, so much so that some people will pay a crazy high amount just to have their yards maintained by such individuals. These folks are known as landscape architects. And just for the record, I am not one of them. Plants are lucky if they survive a summer here. Dutchess County has benefited over the years from some of these great minds who have given us some beautiful landscapes and gardens that we can still enjoy to this day. Folks like Andrew Jackson Downing, Calvert Vaugh, Beatrix Ferran, just to name a few. Many of our gardens have become tourist attractions, both for their beauty and their history. We have also lost a few gardens over the years through either change of ownership or just general neglect. With the coming of this beautiful warm weather and everybody getting out and working on their gardens, I thought, why don't we take a little journey to look at some of the great gardens and landscapes of the area, ones that are still around and ones that are long gone. First on our list of beautiful gardens is Blythewood. This lovely formal Italianate garden was the work of Francis Hoppen, a designer who not only did landscape work, but was also an architect. In 1900, he was hired by a wealthy real estate investor named Andrew Brisky. He was hired to redesign a portion of the Bard estate which Brisky had purchased. Hoppen built this lovely house first, and when it was complete, he added in a walled-in garden that overlooks the Hudson and Catskills. However, if you go back even earlier, let's say the 1830s, you will find that Andrew Jackson Downing was actually the first landscape gardener to work on this property, when it belonged to Robert Donaldson. This is part of Bard College campus today. Heading south, we come to a garden with a similar feel to that of Blythewood, the formal Italianate gardens at Vanderbilt Mansion. This property also has ties to the Bard family like Blythewood, as this land had been the home of Dr. Samuel Bard. After the Bard family, the next resident to call this estate home was a very famous early botanist, Dr. David Hosack. Hosack was a professor of botany at Columbia University, and he helped to create the first botanical garden in New York City. The layout of the garden is mostly the work of Walter Langdon Jr., who owned the property after the Hosack family. However, its most famous owners were the Vanderbilts, Frederick and Louise, who would continue to keep the gardens in tip-top shape with the help of a large army of gardeners. Today, the garden is kept up by a team of volunteers known as the Vanderbilt Garden Association. In the turn of the 20th century, there were very few women in the field of professional landscape architecture, with the exception of this woman, Beatrix Ferran. She was born in 1872 in New York City. Her aunt was one of the most famous authors from the era, Edith Wharton, who no doubt inspired Ferran to live out her dream of becoming a famous landscape architect. She studied under a Harvard professor, Charles Sprague Sargent, and began designing gardens in the 1890s. In 1912, she was commissioned by Thomas and Mary Newbold to design a garden at their home at Hyde Park, Bell Field. The 18th century house had just been remodeled by the famous firm of McKim, and White. Ferran got to work organizing an elegant path with walls, plantings, and a center courtyard that connected to a side patio. This garden and house is one of the few known pairings of these two prominent architectural firms that's still in use today. This is now the administrative headquarters of the National Park Service here in Hyde Park. As we make our way into Poughkeepsie, one of the first places we come to happens to be the work of arguably one of the greatest landscape architect teams. The grounds of the Hudson River State Hospital were originally laid out by Calvert Vall and Frederick Law Olmsted. This pair had become famous ever since their work on Central Park. Sadly, not much is left of the original layout that the team created. There even used to be a beautiful conservatory on the property, and patients here would also work to improve the gardens themselves. But all of this is now long gone. Another sad loss for the city of Poughkeepsie was the beautiful gardens of Eastman Park. Harvey Eastman had purchased 27 acres of land here in the 1860s. He spent over $200,000 to build a lavish house and improve the grounds into a glorious park. The plantings and pathways that used to run through this property are now long gone, but they were once considered to be some of the most beautiful of any city park. Heading down South Road, we come to Locust Grove, the former home of Samuel F.B. Morse. Of course, Morse had a garden here during his time, but it was expanded by the Young family who purchased the property in 1901. Martha Young was responsible for keeping the garden looking its best, and her garden was one of many on display in the summer of 1940. Several private homes opened their gardens to the public to help raise money for war relief, as seen here in this pamphlet within our collection. The gardens are still enjoyed today by thousands of visitors each year. Innisfree is considered to be one of the finest gardens in the world, and it's right here in our county. Work began on the garden in the 1920s and was very heavily inspired by Chinese and Japanese gardens from centuries ago. The work was done by Walter and Marion Beck, with the added help and inspiration of professionally trained landscape architect Lester Collins. Work continued on the project until the 1950s. Heading further down to the very southern end of Dutchess County, we come to the grounds of what used to be known as the Craig House. Of course, this used to be a hospital that was once run by Dr. Jonathan Slocum. In fact, in the pamphlet I mentioned earlier about the gardens tour, the gardens here that the doctor and his wife maintained were open to the public on this very tour, with Scandinavian dancers, just in case the scenery wasn't enough for you. The grounds here, as well as the grounds next door, at an estate that used to be known as Wodeneth, were created by landscape architect Henry Winthrop Sargent. He was also the owner of Wodeneth. Sadly, these gardens have also been lost to time. The fact is, a beautiful home is not really a beautiful home without a beautiful landscape. See what I mean? Thank you very much for watching.
This has been another broadcast brought to you by the Poughkeepsie Public Library District. Thanks again for watching.